Many world religions have their own prophecy for how the world will end. Many people are probably familiar with the biblical book of Revelation, which is believed to foretell the rapture. And if you're a mythology nerd or a Norse pagan, you're probably familiar with Ragnarok, where the Norse pantheon dies in their final battle with the Jotnar. And by the way, I get a lot of comments asking me why I haven't done a cartoon about Ragnarok yet, and as good as that SEO would probably be right now, there's a lot of Norse mythology, guys. I'm not gonna skip right to the series finale. Anyway, so because apocalypse myths are a common trope in mythology, I see a lot of people wondering if one existed in ancient Greek tradition. And the short answer is, as far as we can tell, no, not really. But we can still take a look at classical texts to try and see if the ancient Greeks might have at least had some notion of how the world might end. Now, unlike in Norse or Egyptian mythology, Greek gods can't ever die. Except maybe Pan, but that's kind of a matter of interpretation, it's complicated. I'll probably do some research and eventually make a video about Pan, but for now we're just gonna ignore him because at best, he's the exception that proves the rule. Greek gods generally can't die, so I don't think there's any reasons the Greeks would have believed that their pantheon would eventually be wiped out in some kind of cataclysm. There are, however, some instances in Greek mythology where Zeus's rule as king of the gods was challenged, like when Typhon kicked his ass, or when his first wife Metis was prophesied to have a son greater than his father, but in those instances, Zeus always comes out on top in the end. In my opinion, though others might disagree, those stories are meant to actually emphasize Zeus's right to sovereignty. Unlike his father and his grandfather, Zeus is actually able to overcome potential challenges to his throne, and that's why he'll always be in charge. But while gods might not have any plausible existential threats, the same can't be said for us. I think for as long as humans have had history, many people just naturally assume that they're living at the tail end of it. Looking again at biblical tradition, doomsday prophets have been expecting the rapture to happen in their lifetime for literally thousands of years. Don't worry, Watchtower, you'll get it one of these days. But offshoot Christians certainly weren't the first religious doomers. If you want to see a prolific ancient Greek doomer, you should look no further than Hesiod. Hesiod wrote the poem Works and Days, which at its core is a super passive-aggressive guide addressed to his brother on how to be a good farmer. But Hesiod also goes into some tangents recounting the broad history of humankind and their relationship to the gods. He first describes a golden age populated by a race of peaceful humans who lived free from all forms of toil and suffering. This race, however, eventually died out for reasons Hesiod doesn't specify. Next was the Silver Age, where Zeus created a new but inferior race of humans. They each took 100 years to reach maturity, and then would soon die thanks to their sinful nature towards each other. Zeus eventually eradicated these humans because they refused to venerate and offer sacrifices to the gods. After that was the Bronze Age, with a third race of humans who were extremely violent and ended up all destroying each other with the weapons they created. But then there was a fourth age, the Age of Heroes. This is probably the period where Hesiod imagined all the stories of Greek heroes like Perseus, Jason, Heracles, etc. taking place. And the men of this era were actually noble and virtuous, and humankind got to enjoy a brief period of prosperity where they lived in the gods' favor. But of course, these heroic men gradually died out, leading into the Iron Age, which Hesiod considered himself to be living in. And of his era, he had this to say: "Would that I were not among the men of the fifth generation, but either had died before or been born afterwards. For now truly is a race of iron, and men never rest from labor and sorrow by day, and from perishing by night, and the gods shall lay sore trouble upon them. But notwithstanding, even these shall have some good mingled with their evils. And Zeus will destroy this race of mortal men also when they come to have gray hair on the temples at their birth. The father will not agree with his children, nor children with their father, nor guest with his host, nor comrade with comrade, nor will brother be dear to brother as aforetime. Men will dishonor their parents as they grow quickly old, and will carp at them, chiding with bitter words. Hard-hearted they, not knowing the fear of the gods. They will not repay their aged parents the cost of their nurture, for might shall be their right, and one man will sack another's city. There will be no favor for the man who keeps his oath, or for the just, or for the good, but rather men will praise the evildoer and his violent dealing. Strength will be right, and reverence will cease to be, and the wicked will hurt the worthy man, speaking false words against him, and will swear an oath upon them. Envy, foul-mouthed, delighting in evil, with scowling face, will go along with wretched men, one and all. And then Eidos and Nemesis, with their sweet forms wrapped in white robes, will go forth from wide-paved earth and forsake mankind to join the company of the deathless gods. And bitter sorrows will be left for mortal men, and there will be no help against evil. So to paraphrase Hesiod's history of humanity, things might have started out great, but it's been a downward trend ever since. Not so long ago, we actually did manage to get our act together. You know, we had real men with good, honest values, and boy do I wish I lived in that generation. Because the kids these days, they've thrown that all away. They're lazy, they lie, cheat, and steal, they've lost their faith, they disrespect their elders. It's not 100% bad yet, but it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse until Sky Daddy gets fed up and just wipes us all out. So basically, Hesiod was a boomer. This is the funniest thing about history. It doesn't matter where or when or whether the period was measurably better or worse than the one before it. There's always a grumpy old guy who romanticizes the semi-recent past and complains about how the later generations are running things into the ground. Other than maybe the thing about infants one day being born with gray hair, not sure where that might have come from. I don't think Hesiod's retelling an established Greek doomsday prophecy that everyone believed in. He's just expressing the same pessimistic sentiment common to grumpy old dudes throughout all human history. So ancient Greece might not have had anything like Ragnarok or Revelation in its mythological canon, but they had plenty of boomers there to tell you about how those damn kids are ruining everything.